All right, so I'm going to show you guys the best way to make a good looking graph from the data that we collected from the glucose tolerance test. So the first thing to do when you open up a Google spreadsheet is to make sure you title it up here. And then we're going to be making lots of spreadsheets in this class, so make sure you click the folder here and move it to the appropriate Google folder in your drive. So I entered in the data that's in a very similar way that's on your data table that you have in your lab notebook. However, I didn't add as much specific titles on here because we can always go in and edit those axes later. So I think this is a good appropriate way to set up simple, and then make sure we'll add the units and more specific axes labels later in the graph. So once you have your data entered in here, now keep in mind that my data is different than yours, so don't copy exactly what I have, copy what you have. And once you have that in there, you're going to select your data, all of it like that, and then you're going to go to Insert, Chart. And now it automatically makes a bar graph. I don't think a bar graph is the best choice for this type of experiment. We are measuring a trend over time, and I think a line graph displays that a lot better. All right, so it's looking somewhat okay, but as we can see, we don't have a label here, and we don't have units or anything like that, and then also our data seems to be cut off or almost cut off right here at the top. So we're going to have to adjust the ranges on our axes in a little bit. So it also puts up the chart editor, and here's where you can select what type of chart you want. We should have a line chart. I would keep all of this, just don't mess with any of this, and I would go over to the customize option over here. And here's where you can start playing around with how your chart looks. Chart style lets you pick a background color, choose your font if you want to. One button that I recommend is clicking this smooth option, and as you can see that has smoothed out the lines. When you're measuring an approximate change over time, remember the glucose levels that we got, we used kind of a presumptive test, so we didn't really get accurate numbers. So smoothing out those lines, I think, just makes it look a lot better. But that's an option. If you want to change any of the titles, you click this button right here, Chart Axes and Titles. And then here you select what you want to edit. So let's first give our title or our graph a name. This is not a great name. I would name it Glucose Tolerance Test Results. Since it's not an experiment with variables and all that, this is an appropriate specific title. Again, you can fool around with the font if you want to. Next thing, we should make sure our axes are labeled. So we're going to go to over here, we're going to drop down, and we're going to give a horizontal axis title. Time of blood collection is okay, but you got to make sure that you put in your units. I'm not going to tell you what the units are, I think you can figure that out, but make sure that they're on there. Again, change the font if you'd like to. Then we're going to go back up here and click vertical axis title. And it doesn't have one right now, so we got to give it one. So on the x-axis, or excuse me, y-axis, that will be our blood glucose concentration. And remember, that was measured. That's a quantitative measurement, so there needs to be units. Again, I won't tell you what they are. You can figure that out. Okay. All right, that looks good. Our axes look good. Now let's see if we can adjust the ranges on our axes so the data doesn't get cut off like there at the top. So if you go down to, let's see, we want our vertical axis. We want to edit that. So if you click that, you can set a min and max value to kind of get the data in there and not get cut off. So min value 0 is good. Maximum value, it looks like my data goes above 200, so let's try 225. And that way now all the data is in our graph and doesn't get cut off. So I think 225 is good for my data, however for your data it might be different. Okay, so we have our key over here, which looks good. We have labeled axes with a good title, and all of our data fits in there. So I think we're done.